J-20 versus F-22. East versus West, air dominance. This is the most important fighter jet rivalry on the planet. And today, we're settling it, round by round, rating by stealth, speed, weapons, maneuverability, combat experience, and the bigger strategic picture that most comparisons miss. One jet wins. Let's find out which one. Why 5th generation changes everything. Before we score anything, you need to understand why this matchup matters so much and why the generation these jets belong to is the most important fact about them. For most of aviation history, fighter jets competed on speed, altitude, and weapons. Better radar, bigger missiles, faster aircraft. That was the arms race. 4th generation jets like the F-16 and Russia's Su-27 were at the top. They were fast, maneuverable, well-armed, and deadly in the hands of a trained pilot. Then came the 5th generation, and it changed the rules entirely. You see, 5th generation fighters don't just outperform 4th generation jets, they make them obsolete. The combination of stealth, advanced sensors, data fusion, and super cruise capability, which is the ability to fly supersonic without using fuel. Burning afterburners creates an aircraft that can see the enemy without being seen, engage from ranges where no counter is possible, and disappear before retaliation. Military simulations and real training exercises have demonstrated what this means in practice. In exercises where 5th generation jets face 4th generation opponents, the exchange ratios are staggering. F-22s have recorded simulated kill ratios exceeding 100-to-1 in some scenarios. The older jets simply cannot compete. They are detected, targeted, and killed before they know the engagement has started. This is why the J-20 matters so much. China didn't try to build a better 4th generation jet. They built a 5th generation jet specifically designed to challenge F-22 dominance. How well they executed that ambition is what this entire comparison is about. Origins and the espionage. Question where these jets came from tells you a lot about what they actually are. The F-22 Raptor was conceived in the 1980s as the U.S. Air Force's answer to a Soviet threat that ultimately never materialized because the USSR collapsed before the F-22 ever flew. But development continued anyway. The Air Force understood that maintaining air dominance required a generational leap regardless of who the adversary was. The F-22 entered operational service in 2005, making it the most advanced fighter ever built at introduction, a title it held for nearly 2 decades. Here's where the story gets uncomfortable for Beijing. The J-20 was unveiled in 2011 and entered Chinese service in 2017. Defense analysts almost immediately noticed design similarities between the J-20 and F-22 that went beyond aerodynamic coincidence like forward fuselage shaping, canopy geometry, and intake design. U.S. intelligence officials publicly attributed these similarities to Chinese cyber espionage operations that had penetrated defense contractors working on the F-22 program. But China denied this. But the timing and specificity of the resemblances have never been satisfactorily explained. What we can say with confidence is that the J-20 program accelerated dramatically in the 2000s, backed by surging Chinese defense investment. China's official defense spending of $225 to $261 billion in 2020 looks like a third of America's $718 billion until you apply purchasing power parity. Adjusted for what money actually buys inside China, effective defense spending reaches roughly 75% of American levels. The gap is far narrower than headlines suggest. So if we are looking for a winner, the F-22 wins on program integrity and transparency. The espionage questions surrounding J-20 do not look for China honestly. Design and specifications. What the numbers say. Let's get into the specifications because some of these numbers are surprising. Both jets operate at a maximum height of approximately 65,000 feet, or about 12.4 miles above the Earth. Both exceed Mach 2 in maximum speed, crossing 1,500 miles per hour. These jets are remarkably similar on paper, but paper specs don't tell the whole story. The F-22 has a combat range of approximately 497 miles or 800 kilometers. Without external fuel tanks, external tanks would compromise its stealth profile. So operationally, 497 miles is the realistic combat radius you plan around. The J-20 surprises here. It carries a larger internal fuel load, giving it a combat range of approximately 684 miles or 1,100 kilometers. That's nearly 40% more range than the F-22. For an aircraft designed to operate in the vast distances of the Pacific Theater, that range advantage is operationally significant. Chinese planners designed the J-20 knowing it would need to project power across enormous stretches of ocean, and they built that requirement directly into the airframe. Both jets are twin-engine aircraft. Both use internal weapons bays to preserve their stealth profiles, where they store missiles inside the fuselage rather than on external pylons that would create radar returns. Both are designed from the ground up as stealth jets. Where the specifications diverge meaningfully is in what we don't fully know about the J-20. China has not publicly released detailed performance data for the J-20, and much of what analysts work with is derived from visual observation, satellite imagery, and intelligence assessments. The F-22 specifications, by contrast, are extensively documented. This round winner is definitely the J-20 based on range. The J-20's larger combat radius is a genuine operational advantage in any Pacific scenario. But the F-22 specifications are verified, so that's something to consider. Stealth. Who's actually invisible? Stealth is the defining capability of fifth-generation fighters, and this is where the gap between these two jets becomes most significant. Stealth isn't about being completely invisible to radar. It's about reducing the amount of radar energy that bounces back to the enemy's receiver to the point where you appear as noise rather than a target. A perfectly stealthy aircraft would show up on radar the size of a marble. The F-22 reportedly achieves a radar cross-section somewhere in that territory. Exactly how small is classified. The F-22 was designed to minimize its radar signature from every angle: front, sides, rear, above, and below. The shaping of every surface, the materials used in its skin, the way its engine inlets are designed to hide the radar reflective fan blades. The J-20 is stealthy from the front. Its forward aspect radar cross-section is believed to be genuinely low, but defense analysts have consistently assessed that the J-20 is more vulnerable to radar detection from its sides, and particularly from the rear, where its engine nozzles are not as thoroughly optimized for stealth as the F-22's. The nozzles on the J-20 are notably less refined than those on the F-22, a detail visible in photographs and significant in terms of rear aspect stealth. This matters tactically. An aircraft that is stealthy from the front but detectably from the sides and rear can be targeted by a maneuvering adversary or by a networked force that approaches from multiple angles simultaneously. There's also the question of electronic warfare and radar systems. The F-22's AN/APG-77 AESA radar is one of the most advanced airborne radar systems ever built, capable of operating in modes that are extraordinarily difficult to detect and jam. The J-20's AESA radar, or the KLJ-5, is a genuine capability, but independent assessments consistently rate it below the F-22 system in both range and sophistication. So when it comes to stealth, the winner for this round is the F-22. Clearly, weapons. What each jet actually fires. A stealth fighter's weapons are only as effective as its ability to deploy them without compromising its stealth profile. That means internal carriage, and it limits how much either jet can carry. The F-22 carries its weapons in 3 internal bays, 1 main bay in the fuselage and 2 smaller side bays for short-range missiles. In its standard air-to-air configuration, it carries 6 AIM-120 AMRAAM medium-range missiles and 2 AIM-9 Sidewinder short-range missiles. The AIM-120D, the current version, has a range exceeding 100 miles and is one of the most capable radar-guided air-to-air missiles in the world. The F-22 can also carry a 20mm M61A2 Vulcan cannon for close-range engagements as a backup weapon, but a meaningful one. The J-20's weapons loadout is estimated at 4 to 6 long-range PL-15 missiles in its main weapons bay, plus PL-10 short-range missiles in its side bays. The PL-15 is where things get genuinely interesting. China's PL-15 missile has a reported range of over 125 miles, potentially exceeding the AIM-120D. It also incorporates advanced anti-jamming technology that makes it significantly harder to defeat with electronic countermeasures. If those specifications are accurate and they haven't been tested in real combat, the PL-15 gives the J-20 a beyond visual range missile that outranges and potentially outperforms the F-22's standard armament. But here's the critical caveat. A missile's paper range is only meaningful if the aircraft carrying it can locate and lock onto the target without being destroyed first. If the F-22's superior stealth allows it to fire first, before the J-20 even knows it's under threat, the PL-15's superior range becomes irrelevant. You can't shoot what you can't find. So the J-20 potentially wins on missile range with the PL-15. But the F-22 wins on the ability to get inside firing range first without being detected. In practice, stealth determines who fires first. Maneuverability. The F-22 is universally regarded as one of the most maneuverable fighter jets ever built. Its thrust vectoring nozzles, which can redirect engine exhaust to control pitch and yaw, independently of conventional flight surfaces, give it the ability to point its nose in directions that would be aerodynamically impossible for conventional jets. This allows the F-22 to execute maneuvers that simply cannot be replicated by aircraft without thrust vectoring, giving it a decisive close-range advantage in any turning engagement. The J-20's maneuverability is a more complicated story, and this is where one of its biggest weaknesses lives. China designed the J-20 to use the WS-15, which is an indigenous high-performance engine specifically developed to give the J-20 the thrust and vectoring capability it needs to compete with the F-22 in a turning fight. The problem is that the WS-15 has not been ready. China has struggled for years to develop a domestically produced engine that meets the J-20's performance requirements. As a result, operational J-20s have been flying with Russian AL-31's engines, the same engines that power the Russian Su-27 family, and in some variants, an interim Chinese engine that is better than the AL-31's, but still short of the WS-15's design targets. Flying a stealth airframe designed around a high-performance engine with a less capable power plant is the equivalent of putting a truck engine in a sports car. The aerodynamics are there. The thrust to fully exploit them isn't. The F-22, with thrust vectoring and 35,000 pounds of thrust, can execute maneuvers the current J-20 cannot match. Until the WS-15 is operational and China claims the updated J-20B will fly with it, maneuverability is a genuine Raptor advantage. Combat experience. This round is where the comparison gets most honest and most uncomfortable for both sides. The F-22 has been operational since 2005. It has participated in real operations like flying combat missions over Syria in 2014, integrating into complex multinational operations, training alongside allied air forces across the globe. Its systems have been tested against live electronic warfare environments. Its pilots have developed tactics and techniques across 2 decades of operational experience, and the aircraft's performance has been refined through thousands of hours of real-world flying in contested conditions. There are 187 operational F-22s. That's it. The program was canceled in 2011, a decision driven by cost, with each aircraft running to approximately $150 million, and a post-Cold War strategic assessment that concluded 187 was sufficient. The manufacturing facilities were shut down. The production line was dismantled. The U.S. cannot build more F-22s without reconstructing the entire production infrastructure, a process that would take years and cost billions. F-22 upgrades have also stalled, limited by the challenge of updating an aircraft whose production line no longer exists. The J-20 entered Chinese service in 2017 and has not been used in combat. It has not been tested against real adversaries in real electronic warfare environments. Its pilot training and tactical development are still maturing. For all its impressive specifications, the J-20 remains an unproven combat system. but China is building them. Estimates put current J-20 numbers at 50 to 60 operational aircraft, which is far fewer than the F-22 today. But the production line is active and the program is accelerating. China's defense investment is growing, and unlike the F-22, whose numbers are fixed, J-20 numbers will increase over the next decade. There's also the J-20B in the future. China has announced an updated variant with improved avionics, the long-awaited WS-15 engines, and enhanced capabilities across multiple systems. When, and not if, the WS-15 enters service, the maneuverability gap narrows significantly, and the PL-15 missile deserves a second mention, even if the J-20 is somewhat less stealthy than the F-22. A missile that can kill from 125 plus miles with advanced anti-jamming capability changes the engagement discussion. If J-20S can launch PL-15S from beyond the range at which the F-22 can effectively respond, stealth becomes a less decisive factor. So the F-22 wins on combat experience and proven capability, but the J-20 wins on trajectory because more aircraft are being built. In 5 to 10 years, the answer may be different. Final verdict: which jet actually wins? The J-20 wins on combat range, which is nearly 40% more than the F-22 in a Pacific scenario that demands reach. It potentially wins on missile range with the PL-15, a weapon that outreaches America's standard air-to-air armament. And it wins on production momentum because China is building more of them, while America's F-22 line has been cold for over a decade. But the F-22 wins on stealth, which is the most important capability in 5th-generation warfare, and a category where all-aspect stealth beats frontal stealth in any scenario involving a networked adversary. It also wins on maneuverability combat experience, and it wins on the foundational question of which program we can actually verify versus which one we are partially estimating. So in conclusion, the F-22 wins this comparison. Today, that's the honest verdict. F-22 wins today. The margin is real, but shrinking. And the United States Air Force knows it, which is why the 6th generation NGAD program exists, racing to field the F-22 successor before China's J-20 program fully matures. The Raptor still rules the sky. But for how much longer is the question that keeps American air power planners up at night. That's it for now. And if this breakdown gave you a clear picture of where air dominance actually stands, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives every week. Drop a comment. Do you think China's J-20 program will close the gap, and when? Let's talk about it. See you in the next one.